The GS Ball, perhaps the most intriguing artifact in the history of the Pokemon anime. It kickstarted the entire Orange Island adventure, led Twinkletoes Ketchum to Johto, cranked up the hype for nearly 70 episodes, and then the show's creators suddenly wrote it out of existence. And I need to tell you that there is a truth behind the GS Ball that they will never live down. So let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Charles. How are you today? If there is one quirk in the Pokemon anime's storyline that people never stop talking about, it is the GS Ball. The GS Ball was originally introduced way back in that Colgate toothpaste covered Pokemon Crystal cartridge that perfected the video game series formula on the Game Boy Color, wherein it was this icon of mystery that combined Pokemon world lore with real world technology that was far ahead of its time. And when the GS Ball was brought into the anime, it recreated that sense of mystery perfectly, and was the central fixture in what may have become one of the show's most brilliant arcs of all time until it didn't. Because the story behind the ball was suddenly scrapped in favor of episodes about Brock simping like a simperoo, washed out pharmacists, and Ash getting to first base with a smoochum. Boy oh boy, this implosion did not sit well with fans. And so today the plan is to drill down into the GS Ball fact base to better understand how the GS Ball fiasco truly impacted the anime and its fans by 1. Quickly framing the ball's backstory in the games and manga, 2. Explaining how the GS Ball plotline collapsed in on itself, and 3. Putting 3 inconvenient facts together to grasp at the truth behind the GS Ball and the legacy that it left in its wake. And as always, it will be a fun time, so kindly milk that like button dry for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump right in. There are 3 versions of the GS Ball. The GS Ball of the games, the GS Ball of the manga, and the GS Ball of the anime. But regardless of which GS Ball we are talking about, the ball's basic profile is more or less identical. It is a mysterious gold and silver Pokeball that contains something very special but can't be opened by conventional means or hacksaws or even One Punch Man. And if we were to apply our big brain 169 IQs to the task, then we would probably surmise that the GS stands for gold silver. I mean, it's gold, it's silver, and it made its debut in Pokemon Crystal, which was the DLC before DLC to Pokemon Gold and Silver. But regardless of whether you think GS stands for Gold Silver, Greatest Smith, or Gobbly Solipedes, it is an artifact immersed in so much interesting lore, such that before we dig into the anime's iteration of the GS Ball story with all of its provocative professors, precious Pokemon, and plot poops, we ought to quickly explore the game and manga lore to better understand where the anime ball may have come from and where it may have been headed. Ever since Pokemon's inception, Japanese fans have had access to a myriad of unique content and experiences that have sadly never made the jump across the pond, whether it be the slick Mesastar arcade machines, the Pokemon cafes, or the Metapod merch of your dreams. Similarly, Pokemon gamers in the land of the rising Remoraid have enjoyed more than their fair share of exclusive perks. But the perk that we want to zero in on today is how Pokemon Crystal utilized the Japan-only mobile system GB such that Japanese players could use their cell phones to head online to trade, battle, read news, play minigames, and get eggs and stuff. In the days before handheld gaming walked hand in hand with the internet, before most countries even had affordable mobile phones, back then this online functionality was truly cutting edge, and it was only fitting that the technology was used to bless Japanese gamers with the second coming of Mew, a green Mew experimenting with mom's eyeliner. Enter the GS Ball. In the Japanese version of Pokemon Crystal, the GS Ball was an online event item that the Goldenrod City Pokemon Communication Center attendant would bestow upon players who could collect all of the game's 16 badges, as well as clear a minigame and quiz served up by the mobile system GB's Pokemon News feature. After snagging the ball, players could take it to the Y2K Gilf himself, Kurt, for analysis, and a day later he would return it to them, commenting about an unusual presence within the ball and telling the player to take it to Ilex Forest, where if the ball was placed in the forest shrine, a level 30 Celebi would emerge from the ball to hack the mobile system GB, incapacitating players with an electric shock before possessing their bodies and infiltrating the real world to seamlessly blend into the population and begin the takeover. Just kidding. But scoring a level 30 Celebi with which to flex on all of those peons who did not live in Japan, as well as own a Game Boy, a copy of Pokemon Crystal, a mobile system GB, and a cell phone with a cell phone plan, that was quite the thing. But don't worry, international players could also get the GS Ball in the Pokemon Crystal Virtual Console port. 17 years later. Well, as you can see, the sense of exclusivity and mystery that surrounded the ball back in 2000 was really something else, and this set the stage perfectly for the GS Ball's appearance in the anime. As for its treatment in the Gold, Silver, and Crystal arc of the Pokemon Adventures manga, the GS Ball was presented as a creation of the Masked Man, a dude who looks like a villain from Demon Slayer and likes his Swinubs cute, in order to capture Celebi so that he can travel into the past and do things that will tear at your heartstrings unless you are a cold cloister. The Masked Man uses a rainbow feather and a silver feather to forge the GS Ball, as apparently the power vested in Ho-Oh and Lugia's feathers was necessary to both contain Celebi as well as enable the ball's holder to travel through time without getting ravaged by the adverse effects of dinking around in the void. Long story short, after a series of twists and U-turns, Gold's Pichu, the son of Red's Pikachu, eventually manages to destroy the GS Ball and release Green Mew into the wild. All in all, this was an interesting take on the GS Ball's origins, and most importantly, the manga actually treated readers to a satisfying conclusion, quite unlike the debacle of a plot fumble that we are about to discuss. The tale of the anime's GS Ball goes like this. Following Ash's embarrassing Indigo League implosion, Professor Oak tasks him with a mission to visit Valencia Island in the Orange Archipelago and pick up a mysterious Pokeball from Professor Ivy, the Pokeprof who pushed every 90s boy through puberty a couple years early. In the Japanese dialogue, Professor Ivy tells us that the GS Ball came into her possession by chance, and while she doesn't elaborate any further, apparently this thing is impossible to open by any conventional means, or even somewhat unconventional means, giving us an idea as to why Brock quickly went from simping to wimping during his time with Professor Ivy. Ash actually retrieves the ball from Professor Ivy fairly quickly, just a couple episodes after arriving in the Orange Archipelago, but delays his return trip to Professor Oak in order to spend some time swimming with Dorothy and breaking a man and his Dragonite. But when the newly minted Orange League champion finally does bring the GS Ball to Professor Oak, 34 episodes later in a tense situation, Professor Oak simply returns it to him in the following episode, after determining that the ball's secrets are simply beyond him. He then asks Ash to take the GS Ball to Ball Builder and Ball Breaker Kurt over in Azalea Town to get an expert opinion, and thus Ash brings an extra ball along on his Johto travels, and later delivers it to Kurt in Going Apricorn, a whopping 62 episodes after he first accepted this ridiculous Animal Crossing errand. But unfortunately, Kurt is just as clueless as Professor Oak regarding the origins of the GS Ball or how to open it, so he asks young Master Ketchum to leave it with him just a while longer. And so Ash scoots over to the local gym to drop a stinker in Bugsy's ear. Certainly, at this point, we must be on the verge of an incredible discovery. Everyone was getting hyped up because they had a good feeling what was inside that ball. And then, outside of a flashback in No Big Whoop, the GS Ball was never to be seen or mentioned again in the anime, outside of the Season 4 title cards in the English dub. What the ferret? And just like that, nearly 70 episodes of exciting build-up slipped away like a fart in the wind. But before we outline the 3 resulting inconvenient truths underlying the GS Ball fiasco, let's quickly address why the ball vanished to begin with. It was July 7th, 2001, when Celebi, A Timeless Encounter, hit theaters in Japan. And it was July 7th, 2001, when the last nail was hammered into the coffin of the GS Ball. At this point, it had been over a year since the GS Ball had last appeared in the flashback in episode 148, which was likely around the time that the fourth Pokemon movie had been greenlit. As Masamitsu Hidaka would later explain in a 2008 interview with PokeBeach, the anime's writers had originally intended for a Celebi to emerge from the GS Ball within the anime and take center stage alongside Ash in a sizable story arc. But the decision to instead make Celebi the flagship Pokemon of the fourth movie led to that story arc getting the axe. A 75-minute C-movie that goes down like a mouthful of Buckleys, stanky CG tree monsters, oak shipping, that guy? That's right, this is what we got instead of a multi-episode payoff that should have crowned a year and a half of built-up hype in the anime. As it turns out, the writers had simply left the GS Ball at Papa Kurt's place with the hope that it would soon fade from viewers' memories. But in actuality, they had kicked the Hive, with the fanbase blowing up in a cloud of question marks as one of the anime's core story threads was incinerated into a pile of dust before their eyes. And contrary to the writers' intentions, the attempt to banish the GS Ball into obscurity actually immortalized it as a phantom of what could have been that is still widely discussed to this day, over 2 decades since the last trace of the GS Ball faded from CRT screens. But where does this leave us? Why does it even matter? And what is the truth behind the GS Ball that no one is talking about? There are 3 inconvenient facts behind the GS Ball and how it got body bagged. Firstly, while it is no secret that the Pokemon anime series was created as a marketing arm of the Pokemon franchise, this whopper of an omission was a big reminder as to the degree to which the business side of Pokemon drives the creative direction of the anime. Of course, the show has taken on a life of its own over the years and brought countless wonderful stories to the table, but it is also closely intertwined with the broader Pokemon franchise in a way that separates it from other long-running series like One Piece or even My Hero Academia that are each primarily driven forward by the vision of a single man. Whether it be the shift to the Pokemon Go and merchandise-friendly catch-a-thon of Pokemon Journeys, the floating timeline that enables Ash to adventure into perpetuity when it was originally intended for his journey to end, or the GS Ball fiasco itself. The rotating cast of directors and writers behind the Pokemon anime are tasked with more than merely telling an entertaining story, as they must also contend with a multitude of corporate priorities tied into the games, movies, and merch cycles, which leads to not just unrelenting pressure to deliver week after week, all year round, year after year, but also to make cuts and tweaks that probably would not occur if the creative reins were more firmly in the grasp of a single mastermind, like with the Pokemon Adventures manga. But as it is, all it takes is one business meeting for a gem in storytelling like the GS Ball to get Falcon punched right out the window. The second inconvenient fact of the GS Ball disintegration is that the middle of the anime's Johto segment got bodied into an unstructured pile of nothingness as a result. People often look back at the Johto saga as an era of the anime that was bogged down with copious amounts of very mushy filler, and it is little wonder when only a quarter of the 4th season's episodes actually contained any meaningful plot development. Had the Celebi arc seen the light of day, it would have unfolded across a number of episodes, taking place sometime between June 2000 and August 2001. And if it was anything like Meloetta's arc in Best Wishes, then we likely would have had 10 episodes or more of Celebi action to tighten up that weak 2nd season in Johto. Instead, we got the Pidgey Express. The third inconvenient fact about the GS Ball and its disappearance is that at the end of the day, it served as a case study on the responsibility that writers have to follow through on their promises to fans, demonstrating that passionate fandoms will never let creators off the hook for canceling the plot points that they are invested in such an obtuse manner. Storytelling is a job. And just as management consultants are accountable for their reports and recommendations, storytellers are accountable for the expectations they set up among their readers, viewers, and listeners. So when they don't even deliver a scratch of what was promised, it is understandable why people start freaking out. Just as fans of the Runelords have been a little bit pissed off at the author for leaving the last book of the series unfinished for 12 years, David, please just finish the series. I understand why Pokemon anime fans simply cannot let go of the GS ball. Closure is very important to people in real life matters, and it is also important to people when it comes to the fiction that they love so deeply and invest so much of themselves in. And thus, more than anything, the GS ball symbolizes what happens when narrative promises are broken and fans can only dream of what could have been. When it comes to the GS ball, business usurped creativity. An entire anime season was left in the puddle, and the creators never fulfilled their pledge to fans. That is the truth about the GS ball fiasco. Well friends, thank you for sticking through until the end. As much as the GS ball fiasco crushed fans back in the day, at the very least, the cancelled Celebi story arc received somewhat of a spiritual resurrection in the form of Meloetta's arc in Best Wishes, when Meloetta became the very first mythical Pokemon to accompany Ash on his adventures. But even so, I'm sure any one of us would have taken a full-fledged Celebi arc in the anime over Pokemon Forever any day of the week. Or did you actually like that CG tree thing? At the end of the day, it is just funny that the creators thought that the audience would forget about such an important plot point because, after all, boy oh boy, this is the Pokemon community. But how about you? What do you make of the GS ball? Which medium treated it best? And if you were writing the anime, how would you handle it? I'm curious what you think. Well, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful, healthy, happy, and safe week. Don't forget to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, let's chat.
What?